So on this journey of 52 weeks of why, I've had the opportunity to interview friends from the company that I work for, friends from high school, fellow entrepreneurs that live in my community. And today I have the opportunity to spend some time with a neighbor who is also a friend, and someone that I look up to a lot, and someone that I have a lot of respect for, and who's helped me shape kind of the person that I am and have become over the last 3 or 4 years as a result of our friendship. But before I dive into that, as always, I have a quote that I want to share. This one's anonymous. I don't have a name for this one, so if you do, share it with me. But the quote is, "You can't do anything that you can't picture yourself doing." Once you make the picturing process conscious and deliberate, you begin to create the self that you want to be. This ties into that search or research into knowing your why, because obviously you have to picture what you want to be and then become it, and the why continues to motivate who you are and who you're going to be in your day-to-day activities. So without further ado, my guest today is Carolyn Hollback. Carolyn is a neighbor in the community where I live. First, Carolyn, thank you for taking some time with me today. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me. I have to tell you, Eddie, can I say something about your quote?
No, go right ahead. Yep.
I just used, well, not those exact words, but I just had a conversation with a young man that was just like that, just a couple of days ago, just last week, because he just seems a little lost. And I just said to him, I said, where do you see yourself in 10 years? You know, do you see yourself graduated from high school? Do you see yourself working? Do you see yourself with a family? You know, where do you see yourself? Because I think he's just lost, and I just don't think he knows where, how to get to from point A to point B. And so that was funny that you had that quote today, because I just had that conversation with somebody. So I just had to tell you that I thought that was kind of a cool
no, it is cool.
Coincidence. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something like, when I have discussed my success in the mortgage industry and people have asked me sort of what were the first couple steps that I took, that was the foundation of, okay, where do I want to be? Who do I want to be? How do I want to represent myself? And then my wife's famous saying is, fake it till you make it, right? Very similar to that. Like at a certain point, you can't fake it anymore. You got to be it, right? But in the beginning, you realize that everybody's just kind of doing the best they can to be who it is they want to be. And it doesn't mean that you are that necessarily. It doesn't mean that you are yet a dad with kids, but if that's in your future, then you will latch on to that.
Right.
Cool. I like that. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
So without going any further, let's dive into your why. Tell us your why.
Well, I'm an educator. I teach grades 9 to 12. I teach special ed students. I've taught high school for 24 years. I've been teaching for 30. This is my 30th year. Really enjoy the high school students. I have to tell you that. My why has changed over the years. And I think that's one of the things I noticed, Eddie. I was watching some of the other videos of some of your other folks that have done this, and it seems to me like that's a common theme. You know, everybody's why has evolved, and I think mine has done so also. And you know, I think when I first started teaching, I think my why was because I really liked kids, and I thought that'd be a good job. And to be perfectly honest, you know, and then as I had my own children, my why changed. You know, Joey became my motivation, or Jerry and my husband. You know, I think that changed. But right now, my why for what I do, my why is because I want to help students become productive members of a community wherever they live. That's my why. That's why I do what I do. I think that's why I teach high school. I just want my students, when they leave here, that they are going to be productive, good members of whatever community they decide to live in. So I think that's why I do what I do.
No, it's so appropriate for your profession, right?
Yeah.
And I sort of skipped over the introduction on purpose because I wanted to kind of go back to you being an educator. No, that's okay. Like you dove right in. That's what I want people to know, that you're in education and that you've been in special education specifically for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And over that period of time, I think you've had to come to some realization as to what motivates you day in and day out, because I know that those students specifically are a little bit more challenging and a little bit more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to have a lot of patience in your interaction with them. And so understanding that you've been in education for 30 years, special education the entire time. I didn't know that you and Jerry, your husband, had been married for 27 years.
Yeah.
So he's been with you along the journey of you being an educator and being in special education. And I know your son, Joe, again, you guys are my neighbors, so I see you all the time, and I know Joe. And Joe just finished up with college. He's 23. Mm-hmm. And so when you start your day and you're getting going for the day, for the, as Jerry likes to pick on you for the 9 months out of the year that you work. Yeah. So how does that why get you going in the morning and get you prepared for each class and each day?
You know, I really like what I do. I really like my kids. I learn something from them every single day, you know, and I think when I stop learning from them, I think that might be the time that I say, okay, I'm done, you know, but I learn something from them every day, whether it's patience or whether it's even something silly on how to use something on my phone. I know that sounds silly, but you know, they're the authorities. So, you know, I learn something, you know, they crack me up. They make me laugh. They make me smile. I really enjoy helping them. And so getting out of bed in the morning is not that difficult for me because I enjoy them. And I like helping them realize what they want to do when they leave these walls.
Yeah, I think that understanding that you want to help them become members of the community where they live, I think mm-hmm. that you understand that doesn't happen overnight, probably doesn't happen even in the midst right. of a few months or a school year, that it's a continuing thing that you have to mm-hmm. continue to develop in them. So how do you get the sense of fulfillment out of that why? Do you get to actually witness the students come out of school and be members of the community where they live, or is it more you get to experience them graduating and flying off like a bird and going on their own and having hope that they have taken from you what you wanted them to?
You know, it's always different. Every student is different. Some keep in contact for a year or two after they graduate. I had one young man that graduated probably 13 years ago, and he just sent me a text message the other day. He wants me to participate in Hovey this summer. So I thought of you immediately because I thought that would be something that you would enjoy doing, Eddie. But he asked me to be one of the adult counselors at Hovey. So nice. I'm going to do that this summer. So some of the students, you know, you see and you run into them and you know, every time I see one of my students and every time I hear something about them and it's going well for them, that's my satisfaction. That's my, oh, wow, look what a great human being, you know, they are. Look how wonderful they're doing in their chosen career or even just in life in general, you know. So I think that's when we get our little rewards. That's how we know we've done something.
I've had teachers in my own life that were like that for me, right? Where they, whether they were a teacher that were somebody that I had day to day, or whether it was just somebody who pulled me aside, or whether it was a coach from a team that I played on. There's so many people. I think all of us can look back into our past to find somebody who's planted a seed in us of something that we could do or could become. And yeah, I think it would be really rewarding to see that person 20 years later or 15 years later and see them being functional members of the community where they live and successful and with a family, and know that in some small part you were a contributor to that. That's, how cool.
It is.
So now at the end of the day, again, I'll pull a Jerry and I'll pick on you for the 9 months of the year that you work.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, on those 9 months, how do you rest your head on the pillow and know, okay, my why was fulfilled today. Is that for you maybe not a daily thing? Is it a school year thing, or is it a monthly thing? Tell me how you, at the end of the day or at the end of the school year or at the end of your days, plural, get that, okay, I've done it.
Mm-hmm. If they walk out of here smiling, and if they walk out of here feeling that they have done something, they've accomplished something at the end of the day, then I think that's a success in my book. So,
any final thoughts before we sign off?
No, I don't think so. Thanks for having me. This was kind of cool, and thanks for doing this. It's kind of neat to watch and see how everybody else is achieving their why, and it's a neat idea.
Thank you. It's such a cool journey for me to be on. I'm learning a lot. Like I'm kind of at this, I've said this in one of my prior videos, but I'm at this threshold of raising toddlers and having a second grader and a kindergartner and a 3-year-old. And it's amazing how my why in the last 4 or 5 years has changed.
Mm-hmm.
And talking to other parents through this, learning how their why changed when they're teenagers and when they're in college, and when their kids are now no longer around, what their why becomes. It's comforting to know that if you don't have a why, or if you're in between the figuring it out, you're in the figuring it out phase, that's normal. Because I think sometimes we find ourselves at that space in life where we're not sure, right? We're trying to figure it out. And when you hear from other people that they've gone through that as well, that transition of why is normal, and that it'll come, right? It'll happen. And to understand that the why is going to continue to develop. So you may think, wow, I've deviated a lot from my why. Understanding that that's okay, because you're blossoming into something new it's really been interesting for me. A lot of learning, right? Thank you so much for taking the time. I know it was out of the blue that I came up to you and said, hey, do you want to participate? But you were somebody in our circle of friends that they said, you have to get a teacher, and especially doing what you do in special education, hearing that your why relates to the kids and relates to them being contributing members of a community. I like that you said community more than society, because that's the first word that came into my mind.
Yeah.
But it is more about the community that they're in, and being really good members of that. Thank you again so much. I appreciate it.